The 74-year-old Black Widow killer who murdered her lovers with cyanide. CNN. At 75, Isako Kakehi was in good health and in love. It was 2013, and he had embarked on an exciting new relationship with Chisako Kakehi, a 67-year-old widow he met through a Japanese matchmaking agency. Within 2 months, the couple married, moved in together, and began a seemingly blissful life in Kyoto's Muko City, making rice cakes for their New Year's celebration. But Isao Kakehi didn't live to see in the next New Year. In December 28, he became the fourth and final victim of Japan's Black Widow killer. Chisako Kakehi, now 74, is on death row for murdering three romantic partners and the attempted murder of the fourth. The murders started in 2007 when she was 61, but she escaped suspicion until Isako Kakehi's death prompted a police investigation that resulted in her arrest in 2014. Investigators searched the home of Chisako Kakehi and her deceased husband Isao in November 2014 in Muko, Japan. In 2017, she was sentenced to death after one of Japan's longest trials. An appeal to overturn the ruling fails this June. She used the matchmaking agency to get acquainted with the elderly victims one after another and poisoned them after making them trust her, said the judge in the June ruling, according to public broadcaster NHK. Each ruthless crime based on the planned and strong murderous intention. The case captivated Japan and highlighted the dangers lurking online for aging singles vulnerable to love scams. And it has also caused the country to question why a woman in her sunset years would start killing the man she purported to love. The murders begin. For a woman who has become infamous in Japan, little is known publicly about Chisako Kake's personal life. Born in Japan's southwestern Saga prefecture, Kakehi worked at the printing factory and married her first husband in 1969 when she was 23, according to CNN affiliated Asahi News. Their marriage lasted 25 years before his death of an illness in 1994. By 2007, she had entered into a relationship with 78-year-old Toshiaki Suehiro. On the afternoon of December 18, 2007, Kakehi had lunch with Suehiro and his children. Suehiro took a health supplement, making it easy for Kakehi to disguise a cyanide capsule as one of his pills and give it to him, said the ruling. Less than 15 minutes after lunch, Suehiro collapsed unconscious on the street. By the time an ambulance arrived, he was grasping and on the verge of stopping breathing, said the court ruling. Kakehi accompanied Suehiro to the hospital but gave herself the pseudonym Hiraoka when talking to the ambulance staff and Suehiro's family. At the hospital, doctors found he was close to death after suffering from internal asphyxiation. Suehiro survived, the only one of Kakehi's four victims to do so, but he was left with uncurable higher dysfunction and visual impairment, said the court ruling. He died a year and a half after unrelated illness, according to the Asahi News. A few years later, Kakehi was eyeing her next victim. Chisako Kakei is on that roll for poisoning four romantic partners between 2007 and 2013. Kobe, 2007. Toshiaki Suehiro, 78, collapsed after having lunch with Kakehi, who owed him more than $437,000. He was the only survivor among Kakei's four victims. Kaizuka, 2012. Masanori Honda, 71, lost consciousness while riding a motorcycle shortly after meeting with Kakehi. Itami, 2013. Minoru Hioki, 75, collapsed and died after dinner with Kakehi. He had just recovered from cancer a few months earlier. Muko, 2013. Isao Kakehi, 75, was Kakehi's last victim. He collapsed at home after eating dinner with her and died an hour later. The motorcycle victim. Masanori Honda was in good shape for his 71 years. By 2011, his diabetes had subsided to the mild status and he often frequented sports clubs, said the ruling. He was also diving headfirst into a relationship with Kakehi. Though it's unclear how they met or how long they dated, the couple told friends later that year they planned to marry. The following spring, Kakehi made her move. On March 9, 2012, he met Honda at a store. Then the two went their separate ways. Around 5 p.m. that day, he lost consciousness while riding a motorcycle. Less than 2 hours later in hospital, doctors confirmed his death. Evidence later showed that Kakei had no plans to live out her years with Honda. 2 months before his death, in January 2012, she had already begun secretly dating other men through a dating agency. A cancer survivor and final victim. Minoru Hioki struggled with loneliness and relapsed with lung cancer in his later years, but by July 2013, life was looking up. His cancer had been almost completely treated by radiation therapy and he was in great health, said the ruling. To top it off, the 75-year-old had a new romantic interest. By August 2013, Hioki appeared devoted to Kakehi, writing to her in an email that he wanted to stay together forever. They were close, often eating together and spending the night in each other's homes, said the ruling. Their idyllic romance came to the end on September 12, 20th, when the couple went out for dinner. Hioki, like Kakei's second husband, Suehiro, often took a health supplement in pill form, so it was easy for her to give him a cyanide pill under the guise of health food, said the ruling. They had just finished their meal when Hioki lost consciousness. By the time an ambulance arrived, he was breathing painfully and gasping, according to the ruling. Despite knowing he had children and had recovered from his cancer, Kakei lied to the ambulance crew, claiming he had no family and was suffering terminal lung cancer. When they offered the resuscitation procedure, she refused the permission to resuscitate him. He died within 2 hours. Kakei only seems to get bothered in accumulating relationship and victims. In November 2013, just 2 months after Hyoki's death, she had already married her. Her next and final target, Isao Kakehi, and barely a month after their wedding, she began dating another man in secret according to the ruling. But Isao Kakehi was none the wiser. The Sims renewed with enthusiasm for life. In email exchanges and messages, he told his new wife he wanted to do their best to enjoy a bright second life and live long. Within weeks of their marriage, the newlywed suffered a cardiopulmonary arrest shortly after eating dinner at home with his new wife. She called the ambulance, which rushed him to the hospital, but he died just an hour later. His dad raised suspicion about Kakei's string of unlucky lovers, prompting a police investigation that quickly unraveled her rap of deceit. Catching a killer. Autopsy were rare in Japan and are typically only performed when there is a suspicion of foul play, which may be why the death of her former partners went largely unnoticed at the time. But Isao Kakei's death was considered suspicious enough to warrant an autopsy, which revealed the lethal amount of cyanide ions in his heart, blood, and stomach, as well as erosion in his stomach. Days after his death, authorities found health supplement pills and empty capsules in Kakei's apartment, suggesting that she had emptied the health supplement and refilled them with cyanide that had been ground to the powder. In August 2014, investigators discovered their smoking gun in Isao Kakei's apartment. Buried in the pot plant his wife had thrown out was the plastic bag containing traces of cyanide. The color of bag and its content suggested the cyanide had been buried in several months, and the same type of plastic zipper storage bag was found in Kakei's apartment. Kakei had obtained the cyanide from her job at the printing factory, the ruling said. The car carrying Chisako Kakehi left the police station on November 20, 2014 in Muko, Japan. 2 months later, police arrested Kakehi after interrogations over numerous months. Kakei eventually confessed to poisoning Honda, Hyoki, and Suehiro with cyanide capsules. Police also believed Kakei was linked to the killing of the 4 other men, on top of their 4 she was charged with, but prosecutors ultimately decided against indicting her for those due to the insufficient evidence, according to the NHK. In it for the money. The 4 men lived in different cities, worked different jobs, and had no connection to each other except for one thing. They all had considerable savings and assets. These, combined with her late age and single status, made them a perfect target. The first of the 4 poisonings were driven by death. Kakei owed Suehiro 48 million yen, about $437,000, said the ruling. Kakehi thought she would kill him and avoid the repayment. 2 months after Suehiro's death in February 2008, Kakehi wrote a letter to his children saying She had paid back the money using the inheritance of another man, according to the ruling. The letter shocked the Suehiro's children, who had been not aware of their father's landing and knew little about Kakehi. They hadn't even known her name. When they tried to ask her more, she left silently, said the ruling, leaving them with no answers about their father's collapse or his mysterious companion. The police car carrying Chisako Kakehi left the detention facility in Osaka, Japan on January 30, 2015. It's not clear what Kakehi's financial situation was at the time and whether she had savings of her own. But by her fourth victim's death, she had taken so much money from her victims that her motive could no longer be explained by need or desperation, said the ruling. She was blatantly disregarding human life for her own financial desire. Kakei gained about 16 million yen, $145,000 from Honda, said the ruling, which did not specify how much she pocketed from the other man. Asahi News, however, estimated Kakei gained about 500 million yen, $4.5 million in total from her partner's inheritance, valuables, and other assets. Some estimate place that figure as high as 800 million yen, $7.3 million. Love scams. Kakei's highly publicized case pushed the love scams into the public consciousness. Japan has the second Black Widow killer, Kanae Kizima, 46, who is also on death row for killing three men she met on dating websites in 2009 and making it look like suicide in each case. She too had been motivated by money, according to Asahi. After Kizima's 100-day trial, she was sentenced to death in 2012. Kakei and Kizima are on the deadly far end of the spectrum of love scams, a type of financial fraud that relies on forming a romantic relationship with the victim. Most don't end in poisonings or murder, with the perpetrators often vanishing once their victims have emptied their wallet. More than 32 million users are registered on the country's top 10 dating apps, and around 600 dating and marriage consultancies, like the one Kakei used, are registered nationwide, according to the Japan Life Design Council Association, which grant certification to companies to follow each operating standard. The Japanese Counseling Organization for Personality Disorder and Marriage Fraud, a Tokyo-based support group for victims of fraud, saying it sees over 100 cases of love scams every year. Victims are often found through marriage consulting companies, which are used to find a serious partner for marriage, the spokesperson said. Victims tend to be lonely divorcees or widows with no family or family that lives far away, and who may have revealed large salaries or financial assets on their profiles, the spokesperson added. Scammers often ask their victims for expensive birthday presents and other financial demands until their victims have no money left to give. Sometimes victims are forced to borrow from loan sharks to provide for their fake lovers, the spokesperson said. The dementia defense. It's unclear why Kakei kept killing men she met through dating agencies even after amassing a fortune of millions of dollars. The court concluded in its ruling that Kakei had taken advantage for her victims' trust and their hope for the future together to carry out the killings. Though she confessed to the crimes, she offered little apology to the victims' families, showing a lack of sincere self-reflection, says the ruling. But her defense team saw it differently. They based their appeal on inconsistencies in her testimony, pointing to their confession and each subsequent retraction as evidence of dementia and coercion. The Kyoto District Court sentenced Chisako Kakehi to death on November 7, 2017. Ultimately, her team lost the appeal and her death sentence was upheld. No date has been released for Kakei's execution. Under the law, inmates must be executed within 6 months with their sentencing hearing, but experts say this rarely happens due to the protracted appeal attempts, and many end up waiting years. It's not clear whether Kakei's lawyers, who declines to comment for this report, plans to file for the retrial, the only avenue to save her life. Kakei has offered a few public statements and has rarely spoken to the media. Her court testimony paints a contradictory image of the woman who vacillated between protesting her innocence and brutally admitting her crimes. At times during the trial, she appears confused and tired. Her hair has turned white in the years since her 2014 arrest, and her hearing has deteriorated, with the dementia claims that shroud her testimonies and the additional alleged murder that she was never indicted on. We may never know what truly happened or what drove her to begin murdering her lovers towards the end of her life. In the 2019 interview with the local newspaper Yomiuri News, Kakei expressed resignation and occasional clarity about the fate that awaits her. Even if we reflect on it, your sins will not go away, she said. It will not reach the dead. Seiji Tobari contributed to this report.